Our special focus on the buck stops here tonight, moving from the cabinet reshuffle to one of the cabinet's most, or the Union Council of Ministers' most controversial ministers, Jairam Ramesh. His environmental activism has been applauded by many and criticized perhaps by an equal number. Today, the Environment Ministry gave its report to the Bombay High Court on the Lavasa project in Maharashtra, calling the project illegal, but saying that the project and the company had the chance to pay a substantive penalty and make amends in other ways.
India's first hill city project, spread over 25,000 acres near Pune, just got a second chance from Jairam Ramesh. In a report submitted to the Bombay High Court, which is hearing Lavasa's petition against the government's stop work notice, the Environment Ministry says Lavasa is in violation of the Environmental Impact Assessment Notification. The site visit report has also brought out the nature and the magnitude of the environmental damage caused by the project. But taking into account the investments already incurred, the employment generated and the claimed upliftment of the area under consideration, the MOEF is prepared to consider the project on certain grounds. The conditions: Lavasa will pay a substantial penalty for violating environmental laws. It will create an environmental restoration fund for the area, and it will ensure no further environmental degradation takes place and the existing damage is rectified within a time-bound schedule. The Environment Ministry's order does in fact say that Lavasa has to submit to the Environment Ministry all details of its investments, so that perhaps a figure for a fine that could be imposed on Lavasa can be worked out. The first indication of the ministry softening its stand came 10 days ago, when the ground investigation team of the ministry said this.
Prima facie forest का तो कोई ऐसा issue सामने destruction का as such large थोड़ा बहुत इधर-उधर होगा वो देखना पड़ेगा.
The panel, however, has found some glaring faults with the project. Obvious damage done for sake of speedy development. Large-scale hill cutting has changed the topography of the area, and no evidence of public consultation before starting the project. But the activists feel let down. They say, given the Adarsh parallel, Lavasa has gone scot-free. Despite this surprise reprieve, Lavasa is likely to move the High Court against the order, which it says is more on jurisdiction than on environment issues. After Vedanta and Adarsh, Jairam's axe was widely expected to fall on Lavasa too, a project strongly backed by Sharad Pawar. But perhaps the minister has tried to balance his image of a green crusader with the compulsions of coalition politics. With Imtiaz Jalil in Pune, Siddharth Pandey, New Delhi for NDTV.
All right, our special debate on the buck stops here tonight. We're looking closely at Jairam Ramesh's environmental activism. Is this much needed intervention that has put environment on the national stage, as it were, or is it over the top and anti-growth? Let me start with Sunita Narayan. Sunita, we've had two big issues this week. One, the ordering of the Adarsh Housing Society, the ordering of the demolition of the Adarsh Housing Society, and now this order against Lavasa, which suggests that it's illegal but allows it to pay a penalty and to make amends in other ways. People are looking at this, and there are those who may applaud Jairam Ramesh for being tough. There are those who are saying that he is, in a sense, India's new demolition man, and demolition being a metaphorical word here. How do you see these two orders that have come this week?
I think, Barkha, we must see these two orders in the light of, in fact, a number of orders that have come over this year, whether it's been Vedanta, whether it's been the issue of POSCO. I think it's very important for us to recognize that most of these orders, other than Adarsh, have come because local people who are badly affected by these projects have been agitating, have been actually violently agitating, saying very clearly that this environment, this development is hurting their livelihoods. It's taking away their forests, it's taking away their water, it's going to make them even poorer than they are today. So I think to some extent, many of these orders are responding to the fact that as yet development has not been inclusive, it is not sustainable, and so many of these projects are being looked again.
So
there's also another aspect.
So Sunita, would you say that Jairam Ramesh has not overdone it, as many of his critics say?
No, I think in many ways Jairam Ramesh is only responding to the kind of issues that local people are bringing out. Now, the only other issue that I do want to flag right at the beginning is that what these orders are also speaking of is the fact that, one, there is huge violation when it comes to the enforcement of environmental laws, and therefore there is also a need to upgrade our abilities to be able to monitor what is going wrong. Clearly, what we should not be doing is to say that any project which has already been built is now illegal. We should know that it is illegal because our monitoring systems are so good that we can catch them. Yeah. But it does show that there are a number of violators, and industry is in fact a big violator here.
Okay, that's one perspective. Tavleen Singh, can we get you in now? You have, of course, a personal association and connection with the Lavasa project, so your position could come from that perspective, but respond specifically to some of the criticisms that have been raised in the report placed by the Environment Ministry, and I'm quoting here, which among other things says the damage has been done for the sake of speedy development. There have been flexible development controls. Large-scale hill cutting has changed the topography of the region, and locals fear a likelihood of landslides, and some villagers are alleging that their land was taken forcibly. These are some of the comments made in that report today. Your response on Lavasa and the larger question of Jairam Ramesh's activism?
All right. For a start, it's very confusing, the response of the Environment Ministry, because the committee, when it was in Lavasa, found no violations. I really believe that the ministry is finding some way to find something wrong with Lavasa, because I think the minister was misled by Ms. Medha Patkar, who is not an environmentalist, but someone concerned with livelihood issues. She's been trying to close Lavasa down on the basis of a lot of false allegations that she even gave to the Sunday Times London. And, you know, they printed a story for which they apologized and gave Lavasa damages. Secondly, because I have watched this project, I wish more environmental journalists went there before they made their reports, by the way. I've actually been there. And the highest standards of environmental preservation have been made. If Jairam Ramesh had gone there himself, he might have thought of this as a model project. But unfortunately, he didn't go and was misled by these activists. Now, you know, Sunita Narayan says these projects, that he's responding to local people. This is not true of Lavasa. Thousands of people came out in front of the committee and said they didn't want the project to stop. Medha Patkar came with about 10 people. And, you know, the media, because the media, I'm afraid, has played a really bad role in this. It's leaked information from the Ministry of Environment that we use. Nobody actually goes to the spot and does any real reporting. And, you know, this is why this is misled. And then you have these scrolls going on all the time. Ah, great damage, and there's no details of the damage at all.
Okay, that's
But, you know, what you said...
Yeah.
What you said about local is not true.
No, I'm only quoting from the report.
It's clearly not true.
I'm quoting from his report. It's not my quote. I'm quoting from the Environment Ministry's report. Now,
okay, Barkha.
Yeah. Yes.
I understand. Can you build a hill station without cutting hills? Can you build a city without cutting forests? India needs 500
But then somebody would say to you, Tavleen, Suhel is laughing and I'm going to ask him why in just a minute, but somebody would say to you, is it necessary to build a city in the hills?
And for whom?
And for whom?
You know, I mean, it's not the... it was the policy of the Maharashtra government. They wanted a hill station. And so, you know, they decided to build it. This is only the second city we've built since independence.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we need 500 more. And if we're going to do this, we're not going to get those cities. We're going to get slums.
All right, two very different perspectives here. Suhel and Devi Goenka. Suhel, to you first. What amuses you in this debate?
I mean, this is like Keystone Cops. You know, Lavasa comes up, Adarsh comes up. No one sees these edifices. No one sees these buildings. There are advertisements for Lavasa. They have international partners in the form of Harvard Medical College, blah, blah, blah. My point is, I'm not even interested whether there's a violation or not. If there's a violation, people should be punished.
Yeah.
But why do we always react after the horses bolted from the stable? You demolish these things, you don't even pick up the edifices in a neat manner. Look at what happened in Delhi with Sealing and MG Road. You see the mess that there is. My point is very simple.
No, but
was the government asleep when these projects were coming up? If these projects have come up, And now you want to regularize them by asking for a penalty. That in itself is silly. I mean, Scenic Farms in Delhi is illegal. Now people are saying, oh, you know, it can be regularized after paying a penalty. I don't own property. I want to build my house in Rashtrapati Bhavan, and then I will pay the penalty to President Patil and have it regularized.
Even you can't manage that.
I mean, we hope. But I think, Barkha, on a serious note, I think the point that Sunita made, and I very rarely agree with her, is that there is an issue where livelihood is threatened. I'm all for what happened, qua Vedanta and Orissa, the issues that were raised. I don't know whether it's right or wrong. But to have projects come up continuously, which have foreign investors, which have local investors, which perhaps serve a particular purpose. You know, he says, who needs a hill station? I mean, there could be many who would say, we do. The point is, why is it always post facto? And the government is seen in poor light. It is seen as vindictive
reactive
rather than proactive. It is seen as something that is harsh rather than, you know, progressive. That's my limited point.
Devi Goenka, you said, why does this hill city have to be created at all? It's a question I also posed to
for whom?
For whom?
Well, the British started the system of hill stations, and they were the elite rulers of the country. And when the summers got too hot for them on the plains, they migrated to the hills.
And you're saying no because?
No,
so there's a parallel there to it.
This is a typical socialist right
no,
argument.
I'm sorry,
for
Suhel.
whom?
Suhel, I didn't interrupt you.
No, she asked me. She asked me.
Okay, Devi, continue.
She asked me.
The point,
what is the
point here is
principal
that
objection? Because we've seen a very, to Suhel's point, A, that it's ex post facto. And B, when we go through this order today, it actually says pay the penalty, make amends in other ways, and indicates that the project can thus go on.
I'll come to the order later, but
the
fact is the project was cleared in 1994 when Sharad Pawar was king in Maharashtra. And I don't think any bureaucrat or anybody had the guts to say no to anything that he proposed. And in fact, there's a huge parallel to the Enron project also, because that happened at about the same time with the same set of people. Now, the fact is that today we have filed an RTI application. And the 1994 clearance paper, the EI report, everything is missing. Nobody seems to have those documents. So the basis on which that project has been cleared is completely in a vacuum.
So you're saying there's an absence of transparency
absolutely, there was no RTI
about why this project was cleared.
Right. And there was a hill station policy framed, a tourism policy framed by the Maharashtra government. The idea was to divert pressures from existing hill stations like Mahabaleshwar and Mathiran, which had too many visitors and they couldn't cope with it.
Let me get Tavleen to have a quick response to that. Tavleen, there's also political fault lines here. You've got Jairam Ramesh, a Congress minister. You've got Sharad Pawar, an NCP minister. Completely divergent views. Some sort of political proxy war sort of being fought over Lavasa. And Devi Goenka here raising questions about the basis on which this project was cleared to begin with, and it being seen to have very, very close and powerful political connections. Your response to that?
Look, Sharad Pawar may have made the policy to build hill stations. What's that got to do with Lavasa Corporation, in which he doesn't have a single share? It's listed on you know, it's a publicly listed company. Anyone can see who owns Lavasa or who's invested in it. This is just nonsense. What we've got to realize is that what Suhel says is completely right. While it was being built, when thousands of crore rupees are being invested in, you know, if, for instance, Vedanta, forget Lavasa for a minute, okay? What about Vedanta? It could have made, because it was a refinery in which was close to the source of bauxite, it could have made India an aluminium center, aluminium production center. It's been stopped. How do we know that it isn't the international aluminium lobby that has stopped it, because it would have reduced the price of aluminium by half? Secondly, I don't know whether Sunita Narayan has bothered to go to Kalahandi and Koraput. I actually have. And there's no livelihood you're protecting there. Those poor Adivasis are miserable. They live the most destitute lives. So any investment there would bring schools and roads and hospitals, and we need this. And if you're going to keep stopping them, why should anyone invest in India?
Okay, let me put this to that. Okay, so I'll come to investment in just a point. But Sunita, the polarization on every environmental debate always ends up being between those who believe that the poor and the marginalized need the benefits of industrial growth, of economy, economic benefits that projects such as these may bring, and then they accuse activists of liking to keep the poor poor, which is essentially what Tavleen is saying to you.
No, I think, Barkha, it's time we grew up on this debate. I mean, let's be very clear. When it comes to Vedanta, this is not a middle-class fight at all. In Vedanta, everybody knows that it is the tribals in that area who are protesting. Now, you can call them misguided, you can call them Naxalites, you can call them that they are stupid people, they don't understand what development can do for them. You can do all that, but you cannot accuse them of being misled by some middle-class environmentalists like me, okay? These are people who are basically saying that their forests are their gods. They are saying that they are poor, but they are saying that this bauxite mine will make them poorer. Okay. Because they understand that mining today is mechanized. They understand that Ms. Singh, we worked on this issue. We've done a lot of research looking at the employment potential of mining. So let me please finish my point on this.
Okay, quickly. We need to move on. Sunita, quickly wrap up your point now.
I'm just simply saying to you, Barkha, that there are genuine issues of livelihood, of environmentalism of the poor that are being raised here. Okay. Now, it may not apply to Lavasa, I don't know, but certainly in the case of Vedanta, it is the tribals who are saying that however poor they are, they would prefer not to have the bauxite mining over there. I'm going to come we should listen to them.
I'm going to come to Tavleen in just a second, but Suhel, to the point, I heard you agreeing on investment. But many people would say, should investment drive these decisions when local livelihoods are involved? Tavleen is making the argument that that does not apply to Lavasa. But should investment be the driving force for decisions such as this?
No. Policy should. A clear, transparent policy on which successive governments don't do a flip-flop. It's not about Sharad Pawar or Jairam Ramesh. It's about the government of India or the government of a state which is forced to do a flip-flop based for whatever reason. I mean, I'm not disputing anything what any activist may say. If tribals have been affected, they have every right to be heard. It is their land, for God's sake. My point is very simple. Why allow Vedanta in the first place to make a mockery of our policies, to weed in corruption? I mean, people must have been paid for that project to start off, if that project is illegal. So my point is, why do we tolerate illegality in this country and then want to legalize that illegality by charging penalties?
So hang on.
The whole goddamn place stinks here.
So you're saying your problem is not so much with the decision, but with the fact that it's ex post facto, and the same decision, had it been anticipatory, you would not have had a problem.
No, my problem is that we are a country famous for Operation Successful, Patient Dead. The reality is we allow things to happen, bring them to a boil, and then say, oh God, now we can't demolish it, we can't let them go, so let's regularize it. The word regularize must be obliterated from India's administrative dictionary. That's the only solution. You must have transparent policies which everyone can see. I mean, Devi's point, you know, you cannot have laws which are interpreted by various political factions for various reasons. But on Lavasa, I will retain my perspective. It was advertised, there were large advertisements, everyone knew that it was happening.
But Devi is making the argument that people were too scared to question. Is that what you're saying, Devi?
The media, since when
Devi, quickly, and then I need to take a break.
No, I'm so sorry about that, but the point is that no bureaucrat could have questioned Sharad Pawar at that point of time, and nobody did. There was no RTI, so people didn't know on what basis the clearances were given, when the NA permissions were given, when the construction started. The site is also a very isolated site. Access there is difficult. It was fenced off, and entry to the site was also prohibited by private security guards hired by Lavasa.
All right, we've had very different perspectives on the show right now. We're going to take a break. Then we look at another key decision we haven't spoken about yet. The Adarsh Housing Society. Jairam Ramesh believes that the entire building should come down. Is that the right thing to do? We will be talking to somebody who's an actual Kargil war veteran, probably the only one who actually has a house in that building, Colonel Rajiv Kumar Singh. We'll be speaking to him on the other side and staying with our panel, debating Jairam Ramesh's environmental activism. Welcome back to the Buck Stops here. Jairam Ramesh is perhaps one of the most polarizing cabinet ministers. He seems to have a band of critics and a band of admirers. We're debating his environmental activism tonight. One of his most controversial decisions has also been to order the demolition of the Adarsh Housing Society, a building that was created in the name of Kargil martyrs, but then misused by politicians, bureaucrats, and yes, army generals as well. Let me go now to perhaps one of the few Kargil war veterans who actually has a flat in that building, Lieutenant Colonel Rajiv Kumar Singh. Colonel Singh, how do you respond? It must be very difficult for you because, in a sense, you're a Kargil war veteran. You have a flat in the building, and now it seems that if the Environment Minister has his way, the building will come down. But on the other side, there are allegations of serious corruption that surround this housing society.
Baka, firstly, it's nice to be with you after 10 years since Kargil days.
Absolutely.
Though on a different front. I feel that the Adarsh society is being targeted due to the politically motivated situation which has already occurred into the nation due to various reasons which I don't have to say. It is well known to each and every one. With regard to the corruption, there is already a CBI inquiry and the other inquiry of the state government, the IT inquiry is going on. See, the order of demolition at this stage, you are right in saying that the buck stops here. The buck has literally stopped onto the innocent, genuine and legitimate owners of the flat in other society for the reasons well known to all of you.
Well said, sir, and you're right to call this, in a sense, another kind of front after Kargil. What would you think should happen to the building? Because many in the army are also saying that the corruption scandals have been a blot, and they would like to see this addressed quickly. So, what would you think should happen instead, Colonel Singh?
Firstly, Baka, I'd like to tell you that the entire episode of Adarsh, which has been shown on the TV as well as by the government, has been tarnished to a certain extent. For the various reasons, I'll come back on this issue. Firstly, we have been saying that the land was reserved for the martyrs and the war widows and the Kargil widows.
Yes.
May I ask any news agency and the government agency, be the state, be the central government, be it anybody, that if this land was reserved for the Kargil martyrs and the war widows, where is the notification? Has anybody shown any notification till date? If it is not that, it means the land was general and land was meant to be allotted.
Okay.
And it is the individual movement wherein it was meant for the serving and the retired defense personnel and the other
okay, let me
Kargil heroes.
And answer that question.
Yeah, I'm just coming in there.
Yes.
I'm just coming to you, Devi, in a second. Tavleen, to come back to you, is Adarsh a complicated thing? Because on the one hand, Ashok Chavan lost his job on the basis of this housing society. You've got Ramanand Tiwari in Maharashtra in full-blown war with the governor. And you have Jairam Ramesh intervening to say, all right, bring the building down. That's something that even the Southern Army commander has said. Why then should we think that Jairam Ramesh has overreacted with this order?
I don't think that the demolition of anything is a good idea in a city in which half the population lives in shanties. Right? So we make some other use of it, but to demolish it, I think, is a crazy idea. Secondly, in my view, the Environment Minister should pay more attention to the scams that have gone into the Ganga and the Jamna, which are on a much larger scale. The rivers are like sewers. We've spent thousands of crores on that. There's no sign of him doing anything about those things. There's no sign of him doing anything to clean up the slums in our cities that are real environmental hazards. So, you know, I don't really understand why there's such a fuss over this one building.
Sunita, should the building come down? Does that make sense?
Well, Barkha, should it come down or not? I think we should leave it to the court. But I would certainly say when something is wrong and it has been found to be wrong, I think action should be taken.
But action should be taken against the collusion. Sunita, surely action should be taken against the collusion that made it possible to misuse the name of war martyrs.
Absolutely.
And not necessarily against the building per se.
No. Barkha, in this case, as I see it, there are two issues. One, the entire collusion, the whole corruption issue, which I think there is obviously an effort to deny, but I think there's been enough in the public domain on that. And the other is the fact that when you investigate it, This is a building which is under the coastal zone regulation, and as the notice, at least on the ministry website, clearly says that they have found it has violated those norms. Now, I think the bigger question that we should be discussing is, how do we strengthen our enforcement and monitoring system so that we do not allow such a big building to come up and then find out that it is illegal?
That's what Suhel's been saying as well.
That is got to be the biggest issue.
That is what... Yeah.
I think that is a big issue. That is something we need to discuss, something we need to strengthen. We weakened our pollution control boards. Those are issues on which we should be focusing.
I can't imagine anyone would disagree on that.
But we cannot deny what is wrong.
But this is what I've been saying from the beginning of this program. Demolition is not demonstrable justice. Sending Deepak Kapoor, the retired army general, if he is guilty, to jail is demonstrable justice. Sending Ashok Chavan to jail is demonstrable justice. Sending the then Minister of Environment in the center is demonstrable justice. But you know what? It won't happen. So, you know who will get affected? Simple, honorable war veterans like Colonel Rajiv. Because this country knows how to protect the strong and never protect the weak. A. B. What fault is it of his if there has been collusion? How does a poor colonel in the army know that the flat that he's got is the result of collusion and not compassion? I mean, there are certain realities. So
what would you do with the building?
I would keep the building there. I would arrest all these jokers, send them to jail, throw away the keys, and then actually get the war widows and war veterans back through a transparent process of auction.
What about the stories of the building that violate coastal environmental laws?
Violation, yeah. Every cabinet minister and his mother almost always violates Latvian zoning laws, yeah. Who are we fooling? I mean, this is a bit, you know, Sunita's point is valid. You either have demonstrable justice or you don't have demonstrable justice at all.
I would like to say that it's not only the others which has violated the CRZ resolution. There have been so many buildings, and that buildings has also been of the bureaucrats, the IAS, the IFS. They have also violated certain norms.
Fair enough.
And the society has already got the OC, and thereafter we are being questioned as to why.
This is Bernard Shaw. When whales fight, shrimps get eaten. And it's the shrimps, the poor, the indefensible, you know, the people who can't defend themselves that are getting caught in this crossfire.
Is it non-productive?
Bernard Shaw was not a biologist, so he doesn't know that whales eat shrimps all the time.
But obviously you're not a student of literature either, so it doesn't matter.
More seriously, what should happen to the building?
I think the demolition of Adarsh building for violation of environmental laws is strictly within the purview of the environment
But the
ministry.
entire building to start with does not violate. A.
It does.
B. The person buying a flat there doesn't necessarily know that.
No, I'm sorry. Jairam Ramesh is the environment minister and he's enforcing environmental
laws. One second,
laws.
Rajiv, 1 second. Go ahead.
I think Jairam Ramesh is the environment minister and his job is to enforce the environmental laws. If the building has not got environmental clearance, that's why he's asking the building to be demolished.
Okay.
The issues of corruption are being dealt with separately by the Maharashtra state government, and whether CBI inquiry and 22 bureaucrats are going to be put in jail is not Jairam Ramesh's purview.
Can I get Tavleen? I need to start with the last comment.
And one last
now.
point.
Yeah.
There are thousands of illegal buildings.
1 minute, sir. Yeah.
There are thousands of illegal buildings in Mumbai. And I think this is going to set a welcome precedent for demolition orders for all the other illegalities also.
Somehow I can't see that happening. I see regularization more than this thing. But last comments. Now, Tavleen saying the big picture. What do you think is... just a minute, sir. Last comments now. Tavleen, your last thoughts on Lavasa and Adarsh. What's the big message?
I do not believe that when money has been invested in a city, it's public money, it's the money of the people of India, that you then turn around and suddenly discover that this city is illegal when it's halfway through being built. So, you know, and the same with the building. Secondly, I really believe that in a city like Bombay, which is on the coast, you need to re-examine whether you need CZR rules at all in a city like Bombay. There are no beaches you're protecting. So, you know, I mean, he needs to re-examine the laws that are being used. We may be implementing some very bad laws.
Sunita, is it time also to get more realistic with the laws? You know, in Delhi, we've seen that in other ways where, you know, 10 years ago, a third story was considered illegal. Now it's being regularized everywhere.
But this is
no, undoubtedly, laws must constantly evolve. But I think what the message that I think we need to take home is, one, This only shows you the tip of the iceberg. There are huge violations happening as far as environment is concerned. It means you need a major strengthening of the policing enforcement mechanism. And two, you need to understand that there are large numbers of people in rural India who are crying and saying that our kind of development is leading them to be more poorer, more impoverished. We need to listen to those voices. Otherwise, we will make this into a simple debate between environment and development.
All right, I'm really at the end of time, 10 seconds each. Devi, to you first. What's the takeaway from both these decisions?
I think the monitoring system needs to be strengthened. I think there has to be more transparency in decision making, and I think people should know what is actually happening and stop it before it gets out of hand.
Suhel, how do you stop this being a dialogue of the deaf, because the views are so polarizing?
We need cerebral intervention. We don't need cowboys, because cowboys won't achieve very much. So, you know, when you say demolition, 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 it doesn't get you anywhere. You need a cerebral, systematic, logical approach so that people like Colonel Rajiv Kumar, people who invested in Lavasa, realize and recognize that, look, these are real-time investments. For God's sake, don't have porosity in the laws, and especially porosity in its interpretation.
All right.
We can't have successive governments, you know, altering the interpretation of every goddamn law.
Well, I think it's fair to conclude by saying that it's good that we're talking about the environment finally, but we need to talk about it in terms of building bridges between these two sets of views. Otherwise, it just ends up being a for and against debate.
Or building per se rather than demolition.
That's a good metaphor to end on. Devi Goenka, Suhel Seth, Tavleen Singh, Sunita Narayan, and of course, Colonel Rajiv Singh. Thank you so much for your time on the Buck Stops here tonight. Well, we'll call it a day. Tomorrow we'll be back. Remember, Prime Minister Manmohan Singh is reshuffling his cabinet. We'll have all the latest on that. What did he do? And most importantly, what did he not do? That's coming up tomorrow night at 10. Thanks for watching. Good night.